Well, hello everyone. My name is Greg, and I'm going to walk you through episode 15 of Life, Love, God, The Story of a Soul Traveler by Norman Paulsen, who was a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. Today we're going to cover a few thoughts from chapter 17 of Life, Love, God, called Nehru. I Meet India's Prime Minister. So Yogananda had asked Norm to drive him to Oakland to meet India's Prime Minister. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but it was Nehru. And the year was 1949, and India had just declared its independence from England 2 years earlier. Norm and Yogananda were joined by Virginia Wright, Mother Gloria, and another sister. Dr. and Mr. Lewis would accompany them in their own car. So for this trip, Yogananda gave Norm some cash to find a suit, an overcoat, a dress shirt, and a pair of dress shoes. And he was able to find much of this used and was able to get it tailored all on the same day. The next morning, Norm washed and polished the car, which was a Cadillac that had been given to Yogananda by one of his followers. He had the car lubed and refueled it for the trip. Yogananda insisted that the group drove northward along the coast so they could see the ocean. And Norm wrote, "As we passed through Santa Barbara, I heard Master say, 'I've always wanted to see a center here. Big boy, you were born here, weren't you? This is such a beautiful place by the sea.'" Norm replied, "Yes, sir." Now this is the first time that Yogananda alluded to Norman in his presence that he wished someday to have a meditation center in Santa Barbara. And as you all know, or may know, that meditation center started in Santa Barbara in 1969 and is still present today in the mountains north of Santa Barbara, and it's called Sunburst Sanctuary. So when they arrived in San Francisco, the group decided to go into Chinatown for lunch. Yogananda saw the restaurant he wished to go to and asked Norm to find a parking place. The restaurant was very crowded. When they were finally seated, they ordered their food. So remember that Yogananda and his disciples ate pretty much a vegetarian diet, but some disciples, like Mother Gloria, were more than strict vegetarians, as Norm described. When the food came, no sooner had the hot plates been placed on the table when a blood-curdling scream rang out. It was Mother Gloria. She exclaimed, my God, there's a dead chicken on this plate. Get it away from me." And then she screamed again. I looked at Yogananda and believed that it was the only time I ever saw him really embarrassed. The whole restaurant was in an uproar. I was sitting across from Master, and he kicked me under the table, urging, "Eat, eat." So I ate my meal, chicken and all. The restaurant manager cleared away Mother Gloria's plate. Yogananda explained to him that we had only ordered vegetables but not meat, and Mother Gloria went to the car to wait for us. Let her go," whispered Yogananda, and the group went ahead and finished their meal. Afterwards, Master explained to me, "Let that be a lesson to you. Better to eat the meat than give everyone else indigestion and cause such a disturbance." After a speech given by Prime Minister Nehru that evening, Yogananda and his group went to meet him at his hotel. Yogananda introduced Norm last to the Prime Minister, and Norm was introduced as a student disciple. Nehru reached out and took my hand. I felt his heart. He was a good man. So Nehru had become the very first Prime Minister of India. There were several men who were pushing for freedom of India from as a British colony. The difference was that Prime Minister Nehru was in alignment with Mahatma Gandhi, who felt that it could be done without a war, it could be done without violence, and he wished to have a non-violent return of India to its own sovereignty. Although he was not a a strict Hindu or Buddhist or any of the spiritual paths that India had. He was a good man, and Norm felt that right away. But after our meeting with the Prime Minister, we returned to our hotel, Norm wrote, and then Master said to Norm, "You have to meditate deeply tonight, and God will come to you strongly." So Norm describes the meditation of that evening. "I sat in lotus position on the bed, my legs covered with a blanket, a pillow beneath me. I was concentrating intently, sensing that Divine Spirit was very near to me. Going very deep in meditation after performing Kriya Yoga, I felt my body begin to rise from the bed, spinning with the forces up and down in my spine. I was in a state of ecstasy." For those who have not heard of levitation before, it's a familiar process, or it's a familiar finding among the rishis of India. So before Yogananda found his guru, he had visited a number of well-known Indian saints, including the Tiger Saint, the Perfumed Saint, and the Levitating Saint. Yogananda wrote in his autobiography a description of why the Levitating Saint was able to defy gravity. Yogananda wrote, "I have seen him in remarkable feats. He has expertly mastered the various pranayamas, or movements of life force through the body, of the ancient eightfold path outlined by Patanjali." He goes on, "A yogi's body loses its grossness after use of certain pranayamas. Then it will levitate or hop about like a leaping frog. Even saints who do not practice a formal yoga have been known to levitate during this state of intense devotion to God." So here we have Norm doing something that Yogananda had seen earlier in his life. I believe, and it's my opinion, that Norm had this experience of levitation as a result of his intense devotion to God, as Yogananda had written in the autobiography. Here's how a fellow disciple described Norman from his time with him at Mount Washington. He said, "A more reliable, if less erudite, aide was Norman. A veritable giant. Norman had the heart as big as his body. It inspired me to see the intensity and his love for God. Not at all interested in the theoretical aspects of the path, he understood everything in terms of devotion. God was to him simply his divine friend." So Yogananda, at that time he was known as Mukunda, meditated with the Levitating Saint. After the meditation, the saint spoke, "You go often into the silence, but have you developed Anubhava?" What is Anubhava? Well, it's a Sanskrit word that's difficult to translate into English. It literally translates as a personal experience or direct perception. However, in the way that the Levitating Saint used it here, it meant to refer to the love and devotion bringing about a personal experience with the divine. There was a principle here that the Levitating Saint wanted Yogananda to realize. He said, "Do not mistake the technique, Kriya, for the goal. In other words, we must love God more than meditation, or at least equal to. And so it is meditation along with our devotion that allows us to have these self-realized experiences." In my opinion, Norm's levitation experience actually happened as he described it and was the direct result of his tremendous devotion to Divine Father and Mother. So that ends a very short chapter. I will say here at the end of this particular podcast, make sure that you order a copy of Life, Love, God for yourself. You can order it from Amazon or directly from Sunburst. Please subscribe to the Sunburst Sanctuary YouTube channel. Please leave likes and comments on our podcast. And don't forget to tell your friends about the Sunburst YouTube channel so they too can experience what you have just experienced. So in preparation for the next podcast, please read Chapter 18, The Restaurant and the Lake Shrine. Thank you, and God bless.